With no time for mourning Satoru Gojo's loss, Kashimo Hajime charges onto the battlefield, determined to seize victory's glory. As Sukuna lies drained of cursed energy and in tatters, he gazes apathetically at the thunder god. Just how formidable is Kashimo, and can his curse technique distinguish him from the rest? With Gojo absent, hope seems scarce. Let's delve into Kashimo's past, his hidden techniques, and the various outcomes this battle may yield in comparison to Sukuna's strength. So 400 years ago, in the Edo period of Japan, there existed a legend of a god of lightning, a sorcerer so strong they could bend electricity to their will and destroy any challenger that came their way. But with old age came terrible sickness, and even with his waning strength, every opponent he faced fell to his strikes of thunder. Kashimo Hajime had even resorted to associating with Kenjaku, an abomination even by Jujutsu world standards, to find opponents worth his time. But even with huge contenders like Ishigori Ryu existing in this era, no one could appease the hunger Kashimo felt besides the King of Curses, truly the strongest sorcerer Kenjaku had ever laid eyes on. For this reason, Kashimo made a deal with the devil, trading his current life for a new one, hundreds of years in the potential future, for the slightest opportunity to share the battlefield with Ryomen Sukuna with purpose. And still with the culling game finally beginning, Kashimo wasted no time indulging in the festivities of the battle royale and treating himself to the sorcerers of the newest generation. But he found himself immediately disappointed, having left a time period that Kashimo felt had even stronger sorcerers, for one filled with weaklings. One thing that's super important to note here is that given the opportunity to fight Ishigori, the sorcerer with the largest cursed energy output in history, Kashimo declined and wasn't even moved enough by that statement to stand up from his rock. And when considering how quickly Ishigori was disposed of by Sukuna when the two of them met, it's safe to say Kashimo's shallow-formed opinion was ultimately correct. So I'm looking forward to this fight in particular because Kashimo has the hidden technique, and hidden techniques in anime are historically powerful. He is coming in right after Gojo Satoru got killed by Sukuna, so he's got to be strong. If his technique lives up to the hype, this might shoot him up to number 3. I want to emphasize might, because at the end of the day, Utah Domain is still in place. My biggest question about Kashimo's technique is whether it will be a one-shot technique or a temporary boost. I'm guessing it's probably going to be a temporary boost, which is in line with how Kashimo fights in general. We might see something like a kilowatt Godspeed, because right now, Sukuna has one of the strongest attacks in the entire series, the super cleave he used to one-shot Gojo Satoru. The fact that the most basic part of Sukuna's curse technique had the potential to bypass infinity and one-shot Gojo is ridiculous. I guess a curse technique is all about interpretation, and if anybody could have molded their technique to bypass infinity or figure out a plan to bypass it, it would be Sukuna. Is it the most elegant technique I've ever seen? Not really, but it achieves its goal, which is to kill you instantly. So there has to be a pretty good explanation as to how Kashimo will be able to survive, because so far, nobody has ever evaded a dismantle or cleave. But Sukuna does note that this particular type of cleave is very hard to pull off, so the likelihood of him spamming this is pretty low. The only one we ever saw interact with a cleave or dismantle was Mahoraga after an adaptation. Mahoraga's adaptation can easily surpass the capabilities of a sorcerer like Sukuna, because Sukuna notes that he can't change the properties of his cursed energy. I think this is brought up for a couple of reasons. Kashimo's technique is far more useful, even as we know it against Sukuna, than it is against Gojo, because at the very least, Kashimo can actually touch Sukuna and use his Yujir hit lightning. If he's able to build up the charges, I'm sorry Kashimo, but there was no way that you were going to find a way past infinity like Sukuna did. So does Kashimo have a shot at the king? Well, unless he gets one shot next chapter, I think he's got at least 3 chapters in him, maybe only a couple of chapters. But the main thing here is I don't think Kashimo is going to get one shot. He has been hyped up for so long, or if he does get one shot, it's going to be at the very end. Sukuna seems to expect a lot from this guy. Everyone else seems to expect a lot from this guy. At the end of the day, this is pretty much the only major player they have that is a reincarnated sorcerer on their team. Kashimo is heavily implied to be the most powerful reincarnated player outside of Sukuna himself. And like an orc, he lives for one purpose, and that's the fight. I think Sukuna and this guy's energy are going to play off each other perfectly because they both love battle. They both like to analyze their opponent. While Sukuna's talent is clearly superior to Kashimo's, I think his hidden technique could make up the difference temporarily. I did like that. Despite this guy clearly not having a personal connection to Gojo, even during their fight, he did have respect for the battle that was taking place, because everybody else, they're They're all part of the plan. They're all planning on jumping Sukuna immediately after, and Kashimo was as well. But his biggest worry here is that he must find out who is the strongest, so I can fight them next. It turns out it's Ryomen Sukuna. So here he goes towards the chopping block, and we will finally be able to put to rest that Ryomen and Kashimo are equal to each other. So I have high hopes for Kashimo. I really do think he is going to give us an incredible display of lightning prowess. While Gojo may have been highly likely to die, Kashimo's death is basically a prophecy. I'll be honest, if Kashimo shows up to this fight, cracks open his technique like it's a frosty beer can, and takes Sukuna straight to the village, hidden in these hands, I am here for it. I want Sukuna to have to pull out all four arms to stop what Kashimo is throwing at him. A pretty common theory about Sukuna, or not really a theory, is that we know he has the equivalent of the Vajra, at least back in the Golden Age. The Vajra is the weapon of Indra and has legendary status as being able to fire a lightning arrow or something equivalent. So if Sukuna is keeping this tool around somewhere, or this is part of his technique, we're probably going to see it get pulled out against Kashimo. As for the 10 shadows in this fight, I think 10 shadows is done. The other Shikigamis should be more useful against Kashimo than they were against Gojo, especially things like Max Elephant and its water, because a piercing water gun sounds pretty dangerous against a guy who gets drained by water. If Max Elephant pops out and spawns a swimming pool to kick off into, I'm sorry, but I'm also here for that, because there is that 10 chance that Kashimo is showing up to get schooled. That's just my opinion. I'm sure many of you have your own opinions, because right now, JJ's fandom is in flames due to, you know, the whole Gojo dying thing. So what's your opinion on this? Tell me in the comment section. And thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing my channel for more awesome videos.